So far, the 2020 election features several serious declared Democratic candidates, with a number of others still suspected to join the primary, a broad range of independents and third-party candidates, and very likely a primary contest for the Republican incumbent, President Donald J. Trump. Technically speaking, there are over 600 candidates if you count everyone who has filed with the FEC. At least one of these people were kicked off the Dr. Phil show. Yes, he's actually running, and like Mr. Vegan, most of the people who have filed to run don't have anything resembling a chance of even having their names mentioned on major media outlets, let alone becoming a serious contender for the presidency. On top of that, there are a handful of significant potential candidates who have yet to file. So in this video, I'll attempt to give you a broad overview of the serious 2020 contenders for the highest office in the land, and answer the question, who's actually running? Let's start with the independents and third-party candidates. In 2016, they played an unusually large role, partly because both the Democratic and Republican candidates were unprecedentedly unpopular. If the two major parties do a better job of holding the favor of the American people, these candidates will likely play a smaller role in 2020, but they are still worth a little examination. Howard Schultz, a former Democrat and former CEO of Starbucks, is so far the most talked about potential independent candidate. Despite having no political experience, Schultz got his very own CNN town hall, but some remain skeptical that Schultz has the capacity to run a serious third-way campaign.
Howard Schultz has now said he would not run as an independent if the Democrats nominate a moderate.
Oh, isn't that nice? There are a lot of people I know personally who work hard for a living, who make $40,000, $50,000 a year, who know a lot more about politics than, in all due respect, does Mr. Schultz.
Mark Cuban has also gotten some attention teasing a potential run, but it's not very likely. He recently told New York Daily News, "It really would take the exact right set of circumstances." The billionaire also warned in the outlet, "Rich people are stupid." Fashion model Ronnie Kroll is running a campaign for president or publicity as well. Akon has also expressed serious interest in making an independent run, which probably shouldn't be taken too seriously, as had John McAfee of McAfee Antivirus before deciding to declare himself for the Libertarian Party. Also running for the Libertarian Party is the former vice chair of the LNC, Arvin Vohra, and Adam Kokesh, a former Republican and anti-war activist. But of course, the most fun candidate for the party is, as always, 7-time failed presidential candidate Vermin Supreme, the iconic boot-as-a-hat-wearing joke candidate who has previously run on a 4-point platform of mandatory toothbrushing, zombie awareness, time travel research, and free ponies for all. Like Mr. Supreme, Sam Seder of the Majority Report is also running a joke campaign in the Libertarian Party and has actually come up in first place in the early polling of the field by a group called Third Party Watch, although it should be noted that this is not a reliable pollster. Republican Congressman Justin Amash is also considering joining the Libertarian Party primary race. The declared Green Party candidates so far include Sedinem Kanamo, Kristen Moyo-Wasifza-Curry, who was also a 2016 Green Party primary candidate, Ian Schlachman, former co-chair of the Maryland Green Party, and Dario Hunter, who serves on the Youngstown, Ohio Board of Education. Also considering the race for the Green Party nomination is former governor, conspiracy theorist, and wrestler Jesse "The Mind" Ventura.
It's no more shocking than our government going down to Nicaragua and infecting hundreds of people with syphilis to see if penicillin worked.
Howie Hawking, a co-founder of the Green Party of the United States, may also run. Jill Stein's running mate in 2016, Ajamu Baraka, is also considered a potential candidate. The American Solidarity Party, a Christian faith-based political party with conservative social leanings and liberal economic leanings, is spotlighting Brian Carroll, Joshua Perkins, and Joe Schreiner as their potential candidates. Okay, now let's get into the real candidates. I'm just kidding. Kind of. For the Republican Party, President Donald Trump filed with the FEC all the way back on January 20th, 2017 for his 2020 run, and nothing short of a conviction in the Senate is likely to stop him from running. Like all incumbent presidents, Mr. Trump will likely be running on his current record, which includes an unusual mix of peace talks with North Korea, tax cuts that disproportionately benefit the rich, a trade war with China, renegotiating NAFTA, a draconian immigration policy, planned withdrawal from Syria, repealed environmental protections, a partial repeal of the Dodd-Frank Act, cuts to agricultural subsidies, weakening of the CFPB, reinstating asset forfeiture, and increasing military spending, just to name a few. Trump's economy features a reduction in unemployment by standard measures, as well as an increase in GDP. His federal budget features an increase in deficits and national debt. As of January of 2019, Mr. Trump continues to enjoy an approval rating of 87% among Republicans, indicating that he is unlikely to lose any primary challenge he may face. But while he is absolutely the frontrunner in the Republican Party, he will almost certainly face a primary challenge. Bill Weld, the Libertarian VP candidate in 2016 and former Republican governor of Massachusetts, has already declared an exploratory committee to seek the Republican nomination. Forming an exploratory committee is not technically a declaration that a candidate is running, but it is the first step, and those who announce exploratory committees do typically go on to formally announce a run. Ohio Governor John Kasich, former Senator Bob Corker, and Maryland Governor Larry Hogan have also all considered giving Trump a primary challenge and have not ruled out the possibility.
Today it might not make any sense, but who knows where we're going to be in 2 months or 6 months from now. All bets are off. We don't have any idea.
Even fast-talking conservative commentator Ben Shapiro has teased a run.
Would you ever consider running for president or any other public office, and why or why not?
I wouldn't rule anything out.
And while Shapiro has criticized Trump in the past, he has been pretty clear that he'll be supporting him in 2020.
Are you planning to vote for Trump in 2020?
Yeah, it'd be hard not to vote for him.
Of course, that won't stop his fans from continuing to petition him to run, but it most probably isn't going to happen. There have also been calls for popular former UN ambassador Nikki Haley to run. She too has endorsed the president and claims she will be campaigning for his re-election. Former governor and GOP presidential nominee Mitt Romney, a vocal critic of Trump, has made it clear that he will not be seeking the 2020 nomination, but has signaled that he may endorse a primary opponent. He told CNN's Jake Tapper, "I'm going to see what the alternatives are." Jeff Flake, yet another vocal critic of the president, caught some attention and much speculation, but he has clearly indicated that he is not going to run. He told CBS News, "I've always said that I do hope that there is a Republican who challenges the president in the primary. I still hope that somebody does, but that somebody won't be me. I will not be a candidate." While the president's popularity amongst Republicans indicates that he will likely beat any primary challenger who comes his way, his general favorability ratings are a serious problem. Trump's disapproval rate is around 53%, while his approval rate is 41%. While indeed he was quite unpopular when he was first elected president, he was then running against a historically unpopular Democrat. Unpopular presidents are more likely to face a serious primary challenge after their first term, and presidents who do face a serious primary challenge are less likely to win re-election. President Jimmy Carter secured just 51% of the Democratic vote when he was primaried in 1980 by Ted Kennedy and Jerry Brown. George H.W. Bush won 73% of the vote when he was primaried by Pat Buchanan and others in 1992. 73% might sound like a lot, but his son won 98% of the vote in the Republican primary in 2004. An incumbent Bill Clinton locked down 89% of the vote in his 1996 primary, as did Obama in 2012. Trump certainly defies the odds in numerous ways, but if history is any indication at all, a serious primary challenge for the president would be a bad omen for his re-election chances. Which brings us to the Democrats. First, let's quickly mention some prominent Democrats who are definitely not running. Hillary Clinton, Tom Steyer, Michael Avenatti, thank God, Eric Garcetti, Andrew Cuomo, Eric Holder, Sherrod Brown, and Michael Bloomberg have all confirmed that they are not running for president in 2020. Richard Ojeda, the West Virginia state senator who was running an early, bold, aggressive anti-corruption campaign, dropped out of the race near the end of January 2019. But there are plenty of Democratic candidates still in the race, some of whom you may never have heard of. Maryland Representative John Delaney was the first major Democrat to declare his candidacy, but few seem to take notice as he continues to struggle to show up in the polls. While a harsh critic of Trump, Delaney markets himself as a pragmatic moderate with strong bipartisan bona fides. For example, on one of the most important issues for the Democrats, healthcare, Delaney advocates for a path toward universal healthcare, but his plan is pretty conservative. His healthcare proposal does not touch Medicare, rather it creates a new public plan which people can opt out of for a tax credit, and the private employer system would remain intact. It's pretty much the public option. Marianne Williamson is a spiritual teacher and published author who has yet to make her mark in the polls. Her platform includes a strong reparations plan. Her proposal involves spending between $200 and $500 billion over a 20-year period on educational and economic programs, to be determined by a council of trusted Black community leaders. She also supports Medicare for all and a holistic set of policies to improve public health. Tulsi Gabbard has generally been polling under 1%, but hit 1.1% in the latest survey by Emerson. Gabbard is known perhaps first and foremost for her opposition to regime change wars. The Iraq War veteran has argued that Assad is not the enemy of the United States, and takes a generally anti-interventionist stance on foreign policy. While Gabbard did not support AOC's Green New Deal resolution, she has sponsored alternative environmental legislation in the past. She also supports H.R. 676, the House's Medicare for All plan. Andrew Yang is another minor candidate with surging popularity online, enough that he has passed the donor threshold required to make the primary debates, and he has begun to hit 1% in some of the polls. Yang's central platform is universal basic income, a plan to give every American 18 to 65 $1,000 every month, no questions asked. He has also endorsed the idea of expanding Medicare to all, but is also open to other ideas about moving toward a single-payer system. Jay Inslee, another minor candidate currently polling at 0.8%, is focusing his campaign on a single issue as well. The governor of Washington boasts a long history of green governance and supports the idea of a Green New Deal. His plan includes 4 principles: transitioning to clean energy, investing in jobs, infrastructure, and innovation, fighting for environmental justice and economic inclusion, and ending subsidies for fossil fuel companies. John Hickenlooper, also polling around 0.8%, lays out no specific policy platforms on his website, but he does tout his experience and political accomplishments, eliminating a $70 million deficit as mayor of Denver, and growing the economy and reducing methane emissions as governor of Colorado. He also boasts that his healthcare program brought the state's coverage up to nearly 95%. Kirsten Gillibrand, also currently polling at 0.8%, is surprisingly, by some measures, the most progressive candidate in the race. 538.com ranks her as the most anti-Trump person in Congress, while GovTrack ranks her as the most liberal senator in the country, even to the left of Bernie Sanders. She is a co-sponsor of Bernie's Medicare for All plan and the Green New Deal resolution. Despite being quite liberal, according to the newest polling data by Quinnipiac, her support is strongest amongst conservative and moderate voters. Julian Castro, now polling around 1%, is a former Obama administration HUD secretary and a former mayor of San Antonio. He is pro-Green New Deal, supports investment in public housing and universal pre-K education. On immigration, he has been a vocal critic of Trump's policies and supports a path to citizenship. Pete Buttigieg, once polling around 1%, is now up to an average of 2.2%, even hitting as high as 4% in the latest poll by Quinnipiac. Buttigieg is mayor of the small municipality of South Bend, Indiana. He's an Afghanistan war veteran, a Rhodes Scholar, and a Harvard graduate. If elected, he would also be the first openly gay president. Mayor Pete is pro-Green New Deal and supports a gradual transition to single-payer. In the meantime, he's pushing Medicare for all who want it. Buttigieg has received a CNN town hall, but has technically not declared his candidacy, just an exploratory committee. Another mayor in the race who just recently declared is Miriam, Florida Mayor Wayne Messam. Messam largely remains mystery amongst the mainstream candidates, having received little media coverage. He also doesn't have much in the way of policy positions on his website, but he is proposing to wipe out more than $1.5 trillion in student debt. He also has a history of fighting for gun control and passed a living wage for city workers.
We really are looking at how we can improve the lives of America.
He's so far not showing up in the polls, but that may very well change as he gains a bit more mainstream media exposure. Also just beginning to get a little attention at the moment is Mike Gravel, who served as a US Senator throughout the 1970s. The 88-year-old retiree has not technically announced, but he has announced an exploratory committee and has an announcement scheduled for April 8th. Astoundingly, this candidate has openly admitted his low chances of actually winning in the very tweet that launched his campaign. I am considering running in the 2020 Democratic primary. The goal will not be to win, but to bring a critique of American imperialism to the Democratic debate stage. The website, mikegravel.org, is under construction. Official announcement will be in the coming days. On her campaign website, Amy Klobuchar criticizes divisive politics, gridlock, and grandstanding, indicating that she would aim to be a president who acts based on compromise, consensus, and concessions. Not surprisingly, one of her big platform proposals is a $1 trillion infrastructure investment, an idea well-positioned for centrist support, as we need to fix our crumbling infrastructure is probably one of just two things all Washington politicians agree with, the other being that small businesses are the backbone of the American economy. Klobuchar is indeed a moderate Democrat, having voted with Trump 30% of the time according to 538, and VoteView ranks her as more conservative than 75% of Democrats in the Senate. She is a co-sponsor of the Green New Deal resolution, but not a co-sponsor of Sanders' Medicare for All bill. Instead, she supports a Medicaid buy-in expansion. Klobuchar has seen declines in her polling as of late, currently averaging at about 1.8%. Cory Booker has also seen slightly declining poll numbers and currently sits at 5.8%. While his voting record is overall amongst the most progressive in the Senate, he has a history of raising funds from Wall Street and Big Pharma. He famously defended Bain Capital in the 2012 presidential race and helped to vote down an amendment co-sponsored by Bernie Sanders and Amy Klobuchar that would have allowed Americans to buy prescription drugs from Canada. Still, Booker is a co-sponsor of the Green New Deal, as well as Bernie's Medicare for All bill, and is ranked as the 5th most anti-Trump voter in the Senate. Booker has come out forcefully against the NRA, and perhaps the strongest moment in his CNN town hall was when he said that he is the only person in this race who has had shootings on their block. Elizabeth Warren is undeniably one of the most progressive candidates in the race. VoteView ranks her as the most liberal member of Congress, and 538 ranks her as the 3rd most anti-Trump voter in Congress. She created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, an agency which forced financial firms to return a whopping $12 billion to around 30 million customers who were the victims of scams and other predatory practices. Warren's presidential campaign centers on typical progressive issues like ending Washington corruption and rebuilding the middle class. She has also introduced some more novel, exciting policy suggestions like breaking up big tech companies and protecting family farmers against agribusiness mergers. She lost some credit amongst Sanders supporters for failing to declare herself one of them during the 2016 primaries. She has also declared herself open to different paths towards a single-payer health system. Still, Warren is a co-sponsor of Bernie's Medicare for All bill. She's also, of course, a co-sponsor of the Green New Deal. Warren is currently polling at about 5.8%. Beto O'Rourke has been surging in the polls since he formally announced his candidacy and now sits at 10% support. Despite facing huge backlash in the early days of his campaign, he broke records by entering the 2020 race with a $6.1 million haul. Beto first gained national attention for his Senate race, which posed a serious threat to Republican incumbent Ted Cruz. Still, he is widely criticized for lacking substance and specific policy suggestions. Beto has expressed support for the Green New Deal, but has taken oil money and voted in support of oil and other fossil fuel interests. Another financial concern for him is that while he vocally opposes PAC money, during his Senate race he actually received individual contributions from bundling done by a super PAC. Beto ranked among the more conservative Democratic members of Congress. Still, he is an aggressive critic of Donald Trump's signature policy, the wall. Beto has demonstrable knowledge of border crossing and border town crime statistics, as well as personal experience from representing El Paso to back up his rhetoric. Kamala Harris has in recent weeks declined in the polls, losing her 3rd place spot to Beto, and now sits just behind him with 9.6% support. A former prosecutor, she has faced serious criticism over her tough-on-crime criminal justice record, while her campaign has argued that she was actually ahead of the country on numerous criminal justice issues. An article by Vox suggests a good reason for the totally opposite perspectives. She pushed for programs that helped people find jobs instead of putting them in prison, but also fought to keep people in prison even after they were proven innocent. She refused to pursue the death penalty against a man who killed a police officer, but also defended California's death penalty system in court. She implemented training programs to address police officers' racial biases, but also resisted calls to get her office to investigate certain police shootings. On most issues, Harris is relatively progressive. She is the 7th most anti-Trump voter in Congress, and VoteView ranks her as more liberal than 97% of Democrats in Congress. She is a co-sponsor of the Green New Deal and Bernie's Medicare for All bill. In April of 2018, she pledged not to accept any more corporate PAC money, although she was a major recipient of PAC money prior to that. Bernie Sanders is widely regarded as the most progressive candidate in the race. This self-proclaimed Democratic socialist sponsored the Senate's Medicare for All bill and popularized numerous progressive policy positions during his 2016 run for president, as well as through his group, Our Revolution. Bernie supports tuition-free public colleges and universities, campaign finance reform, and the Green New Deal. It's probably safe to say that his top priority is addressing income and wealth inequality. While broad analyses of his voting record generally put Sanders in the same range as other progressives, for example, the 538 analysis ranks him as less anti-Trump than Warren or Gillibrand, Bernie is clearly the furthest left when you actually examine his policy proposals. Elizabeth Warren, for example, proposed a 2% wealth tax on Americans with more than $50 million, with an additional 1% for billionaires. Sanders, on the other hand, introduced a bill to collect 77% of estates worth more than $1 billion, a return to tax policies of the post-war era, when the top marginal tax rates ranged between 70 and 90%. According to RCP polling, Bernie Sanders is in first place amongst declared candidates, with an RCP average of 22.6%. However, there is one candidate still undeclared who on average polls even higher. Joe Biden currently sits at an average of 29.8% support and has led the Democratic field in all major polls except for a recent one by Emerson in which he was tied with Sanders. Still, he is by no means a shoo-in for the nomination. The popular former vice president has faced backlash for relatively recent kind words about Mike Pence and for much older comments in which he took credit for drafting the Patriot Act. Then there's Anita Hill, and I have not even touched the issues I went into detail about in my 5 Problems for Joe Biden video. Overall, Biden's congressional record puts him squarely in the middle of the Democratic Party of the time, stretching all the way back from 1973 to 2009. Despite this, Biden has proclaimed, while accidentally all but declaring his candidacy,
I have the most progressive record of anybody running for the if anybody who would run. I didn't mean. Did anybody who would run.
Biden has a well-documented history of gaffes and has 2 failed runs for the Democratic nomination under his belt. More missteps seem to be continuing even before he's made a formal, intentional announcement. After his allies floated the idea of him running with Stacey Abrams as an out-of-the-gate VP choice, she said she would not run for second place, which seems to indicate that she wasn't asked about the idea before his team began pushing it in the press. Still, I wouldn't count Joe Biden out. After declaring his candidacy and announcing a large first-day fundraising haul, Beto O'Rourke surged in the polls. Biden is himself reportedly thinking seriously about his first-day haul, and if he manages to outraise Bernie and Beto, he too may experience a bump in support. Already at the top of the field, his path to victory only requires him to maintain his current level of support and pick up the voters of other establishment candidates as they exit the race. Aside from Biden and Stacey Abrams, several other prominent, undeclared Democrats have publicly expressed interest in a primary run, including U.S. Senator Michael Bennet, Governor Steve Bullock, Mayor Bill de Blasio, former Governor Terry McAuliffe, and U.S. Representatives Seth Moulton, Tim Ryan, and Eric Stilwell. While none of these individuals have yet to decline to run, the window to declare is closing. The first debates will take place in June, and to make the cut, prospective candidates must either gain 65,000 donors or attain at least 1% in at least 3 major polls. The number of debate participants is capped at 20, with priority given to candidates who meet both of these thresholds. With so many candidates already declared, the undeclared candidates need to get in soon or throw in the towel. As voters turn their attention to candidates who meet another threshold, who's actually running?
I've got a bone to pick with you.
What's that?
Why the hell did you decide not to run for president?
Well, if Ron Paul runs as an independent, I would give great consideration to being his running mate.